Ireland has never exactly been referred to as liberal. A history of laws banning divorce, contraception, and even homosexuality has resulted in social exclusion and personal shame associated with these acts. In fact, homosexuality was only decriminalised in Ireland in 1993. In the past 22 years, gay and lesbian people in Ireland have legally been allowed to have same-sex lovers, without the fear of being convicted of a crime for doing so. However, they are often still not socially allowed to be gay, without fear of potential bullying, harassment, or social exclusion for doing so. Where do these homophobic attitudes come from? And is there anything we as Irish people can do to combat them? It can often be difficult for heterosexual people to truly understand the struggles of the gay and lesbian community. But we can't expect the problem of homophobia to be solely tackled by gay and lesbian people. They need help from us too. Brian Merriman works with the Equality Authority and Employment Equality Agency with aim to achieve equality for gay and lesbian people in the workplace.
Well, I think you can look at the employment stereotypes first of all. The stereotypes are that gay people are involved in the theatre, and that they're involved in hairdressing and fashion and design maybe, and of course that they're also involved in airlines. So you get the stereotyping there first, and those gay-friendly industries can actually end up not being terribly friendly, insofar as it can have a negative impact on straight people.
It takes courage for an employer to stand up against workplace discrimination. In workplaces funded and partially ran by the Catholic Church, workplace equality can even be out of the hands of an employer. In Ireland, the majority of primary schools and nursing homes are partially ran by the Catholic Church. The Church maintains the belief that gay people should not be involved in these workplaces. In September 2014, journalist Sinead O'Carroll wrote an article on the Journal, giving an insight into the personal experiences of gay and lesbian teachers in Ireland.
With Section 37 and with the stories that have come out from various schools, I think there probably is a tendency for people to not choose the career that maybe would suit them best because of it. Section 37 obviously allows Catholic schools to hire and fire based on their ethos, and because we have a huge majority of Catholic schools here, it does make it difficult to be open and to be a teacher.
It's very difficult with religious exemptions in the whole area of the services that historically religious institutions set up in this country, like the whole medical area and the educational area. And that has a kind of an unintended consequence, that when you protect, which are also protected under equality legislation, religious freedoms, that rights shouldn't be bartered. One group shouldn't get rights at the expense of others, and we have a legacy issue here in relation to Section 37 of the Employment Equality Acts, which has had a really chilling effect on lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender people working in the whole education and health sectors.
It is hugely important that these organisations exist to protect gay and lesbian people in their place of employment. But whether we like it or not, homophobia still exists in workplaces, in colleges, and even in social circles. From name-calling to bullying to outright harassment, gay and lesbian people often have to lead their lifestyles with caution.
By law right now, a teacher can be fired for being gay, and because it could be perceived as undermining the ethos of the school.
One story sticks out from our coverage was a woman who lived with her partner in a small rural town, and she said like they kind of had to pretend to be friends more so than partners or in a loving relationship because of her situation in the school.
The problem is about we're still battling the culture that was embedded over the 125 years of decriminalisation. I was born a criminal. I think it's only really, but last year, we've got our first generation of people who weren't born criminals if they were LGBT. And very positively, at the end of the 90s, 1998, the Employment Equality Acts brought in real protection for people, as did the Equal Status Acts. However, you had to come out in order to invoke the protections. And culturally, Ireland has not caught up with its own laws yet. So culturally there can still be grave differences. People can self-exclude themselves from normal events in the workplace. People can be afraid for going for promotion.
It seems that words like gay and faggot have been normalised as an insult between children and young people in schools. And for some openly gay adults, the homophobia towards them began long before they even identified as being gay, or were fully aware of their own sexual orientation.
Gay teenagers are going to be prone to experience an awful lot of different types of bullying. You will have online social media bullying, which I advise them not to even get involved in or read on that. You will have physical bullying, either out on the streets with some mates in your neighbourhood or particularly in school. You'll have an awful lot of name calling. You will have people think that you're somewhat different and they'll go against you.
Unfortunately, I have witnessed homophobic bullying amongst students in my school, as well as, I mean, any school I've ever worked in. Unfortunately, it seems to be, I don't know, a cultural thing in Ireland for young people to, for whatever reason, even something as low level as maybe calling someone they don't that does something they don't like gay, or they don't like, they'll say, oh, that's gay, or that's that I think can be seen as homophobic bullying at its very lowest. But I've also unfortunately seen some children being targeted because they may not be as, in particular with boys, if they're not into sports or if they're not into rough and tumble, you know, being called gay or being soft or whatever, these kind of more effeminate sort of words being used, and the word gay, and some of the other derivations of the word. So, you know, unfortunately, I think it's a huge problem in primary schooling, and I actually don't think it's, I mean, it's been recognised at government level, to be fair, but I think on the ground, I don't know if it's I think it's a more endemic than it's probably admitted to be.
You know, from my experience with my son, he would have come home from school on numerous occasions where he would have been beaten up somewhat. He had cuts and bruises all over him. He was thrown through a glass door at one stage, but we thought Michael, being a tough lad, would have perhaps defended himself from any physical bit of fighting that might have been going on in school. But it was only later on when we realised all these incidents that were occurring in school were physical attacks on him, and we weren't too happy about that whatsoever. He kept that all to himself because that was a time when he didn't want to come out as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, when he was trying to identify who he really was himself by telling us the reason he was bullied.
I think teachers have a huge role to play in increasing awareness of LGBT issues and knowledge of people who are straight, gay, you know, cisgender, whatever.
It's very, very important now that teachers do explain what sexuality is all about in a really compassionate, understanding way.
I think it's just, and I think it doesn't have to be formally done particularly. I mean, it can be, but doesn't have to be. But more, even informally, even when we're talking about, if we're teaching about relationship and sexual education, it's very, very much heterosexual in most schools. You know, you're talking about a man and a woman loving each other and so on, whereas it should be just two people.
Just to help young boys and girls to be able to deal with situations and to realise that if they do have a gay friend, be it a boy or a girl, that it's no big deal, that it's their life, it's their sexuality, and they're no different whatsoever in life.
I think teachers just being role models is probably the best thing they can do. I suppose, as well as in lessons, just making sure that we're not being too, I suppose, biased towards heterosexuality. You know, at the end of the day, you know, that's probably the best way of doing things.
Of 20 people surveyed, 50% male and 50% female, predominantly heterosexual and in the age group of 18 to 25, 40% have claimed to have witnessed homophobic bullying. A further 60% of individuals admit to using terms like gay and faggot in jest within social groups, although they do not intend any offence in doing so. 50% of reported homophobic bullying is of the verbal variety, while cyberbullying is reported from 25% of survey applicants. Reassuringly, 95% of individuals say that they have not picked on others for being gay. The general consensus regarding anti-bullying policies in schools and colleges is that they are not reinforced to the degree they should be, and that there is indeed room for improvement and development. 65% of survey applicants state that it is possible to be gay and also a follower of religion, but only in certain religions and communities. The survey results appear to be rather positive in general, with 90% of applicants stating they will be voting yes in the upcoming marriage referendum this coming May 2015.
If you're listening to the current debate and you listen to the Bishop of Elphin, for example, would you really want to come out in a school or a church when he says that, what is it, we're not part of God's plan just like children with Down syndrome? I mean, my goodness, is this what religion is about these days?
I think Ireland is somewhat homophobic compared to countries that I've travelled in around the world. I lived in the United States for 20 odd years and I travelled back to the United States an awful lot. My son actually left Ireland as a result of homophobic bullying and he enjoys his life out in California now, where being gay is 100% accepted. It's not a taboo, you're not different. But I find that in Ireland, whether you're going into restaurants, into a nightclub, wherever it might be around town, if there's any suspicion of you being gay, there's a tendency for people to disrespect you, and disrespect you verbally, to disrespect you physically, and you don't experience that in other countries around the world. Your freedom is more in other countries.
There's a lot of people, realising that this is a civil rights issue. If you don't vote for people's civil rights based on their perceived difference, that kind of prejudice can be transferred anywhere you like. I think the governor of Indiana just recently passed an anti-gay law, and as he was signing it, he was surrounded by nuns and, shockingly, a rabbi. Does the rabbi know nothing about his own history? Because Hitler used difference to discriminate against people, first of all, to dehumanize people, so suddenly people no longer saw their neighbours, they saw kind of vermin. And as a result of which, we have a shared experience which is marked every year in the National Holocaust Memorial with the Jewish community, that gay people were treated worse. They had fewer rations and got harder labour than anybody else during the Holocaust. And there was a rabbi standing beside the governor of Indiana as he wrote into their law for the first time anti-gay discriminatory legislation. Now that's dangerous. That is the culture that can only be combated by proper civil law that puts everybody's citizenship on an equal status.
It is the responsibility of all of us to combat the issue of homophobia. We have come a long way in recent years, but we are still not where we need to be in terms of equality. Today is the beginning of the future of Ireland. The marriage equality referendum is coming up this May 22nd. Voting yes will ensure marriage equality for LGBT citizens.
Things like the same-sex marriage referendum will help. Leo Varadkar coming out, but just all these various kind of public faces talking about it more, like the Taoiseach coming out and being all for same-sex marriage is going to make a massive difference. He's a rural TD. He's been a TD for decades, and that will make a difference in his constituency, which is more rural, and it'll make a difference, I think, come the referendum.
Last April, the government made new policies on guidelines for bullying in schools, and part of that policy specifically focused on certain types of bullying, one being homophobic bullying, and therefore every school in the country has to have, by law, procedures on bullying to do with homophobia.
We have come a very long way since we outlawed discrimination in the workplace for LGBT people in 1998. But culturally there's still another journey, and I think the marriage equality referendum is designed to help in that journey.
I will be voting yes in the marriage equality referendum on the 22nd of May, no question about that, for very, very, very strong personal reasons. Number one, why should I, as a parent, deny my son, who happens to be gay, that if he does happen to fall in love with a partner of the same sex, why should I stop him if he wants to get married to him? I don't think people should fear this referendum. People have to differentiate between marriage in church or marriage in a registry office between people of the same sex. People in neighbourhoods have perhaps next door neighbours, they might have cousins, they might have aunts, they might have uncles, they might have friends of friends who are gay. We have to think of those people, and we have to be able to support those people. This is all about the human being, it's all about their civil rights, and by voting yes on the 22nd of May, it'll send out a strong signal that Ireland has come a long way compared to the last 2 or 3 generations.